Hello and welcome to the AppleInsider Podcast. This is your host, Wes Hilliard speaking, and I'd like to thank our sponsors first off. Bartender, William, how are you doing this week? There's a lot going on. We had a spaceship launch, go to the moon.
That was very good.
Apple turned 50.
I heard that,
There was a concert at Apple Park.
Yeah, I didn't go. No. Other than actually, I would say I'm fine. And Artemis is very interesting, very lifting in every sense. I've just realised the pun that was built into that sentence as I said it. But otherwise, actually, I'm a little bit upset because I'm making this sound more melodramatic. Let's go with it. Previously on the AppleInsider Podcast, just last week, you basically made me a mixtape, didn't you? With the new Apple Intelligence, the playground thing in Apple Music, and that was very nice. And I've listened to it, and it's fine. But I felt I should do one back. Do you remember me saying I couldn't see how to do this? It turns out you can't in the UK. Right. Did you know this already and you didn't tell me? No, I had no. Well, I must have heard at some point, but I blanked on it. This is just one of those things where AI especially is going to be a really slow rollout. And if ever in places like the UK and EU, because regulations requiring all kinds of stuff. So yeah, probably not. It's not the best feature. I can see where it can go from here, but it's fine. And speaking of similar features, I found on Apple TV, they've been adjusting Genius to be more universal. Now with certain content, you can long press and it'll say Genius search and it'll pull up a Genius tab on that specific movie or TV show. But it doesn't work on everything. I don't think it ever will work on everything, but it's especially for like iTunes, Apple TV content. Now Crunchyroll seems to be working with this. We'll get to that later. But yeah, so Genius is interesting. It does feel like human curation is involved, at least in Apple's sections that they promote. But it does seem to have a more universal algorithmic version as well rolling out. So something to play with as it grows. It is brand new, but well, I suppose my interest in the music one was because, return the favour. My interest in the TV one is nil, really. Yeah. So who knows whether I've got it or not. I will go play with it later to find out. But
yeah, I don't know how much I'll use it. Every now and then, the way I browse sometimes, anime is such. We're gonna have a conversation about anime later. But just to say here, it is so short and fleeting a lot of the times. I mean, a lot of shows are one and dones, which is actually kind of good for the medium because they put out a series based on a manga and they get to the point that they wanted to. Sometimes they get another season, sometimes they don't, but you're usually left with anywhere between 12 and 24 episodes of these 25, 30-minute shows, and that's it. And it's very easy to watch that amount of television very quickly. So sometimes, when I finish something that I've really liked, I would like to go and see who the writer-director is in that series and see what else they've done. So I like to scroll down and use that section. So Genius I could see being similar of, hey, give me more that are in this vein of things I could explore. That is the most I do with this kind of content.
Okay. I'm just thinking I've never watched a film or a TV show because of the actor or the director, but I have because of the writer sometimes. So yeah, I can see. Good point. I can see me doing that too. Okay, you may have slightly changed my mind there.
So it'll be interesting to see how it all works. But April 1st was yesterday as we record. It was Apple's 50th anniversary. Kind of funny enough that it's not the current iteration of Apple. It's not its true anniversary.
Yeah.
Which is, I think, why what's his name? Ronald Wayne. Is that the guy?
Ronald Wayne was one of the three co-founders. Yes.
Who owns 10% of Apple? He claims.
He claims that he does.
Yes.
It's a bit uncomfortable. It's because really, but that's what he says.
It's because they sent him a check to buy him out, and he never cashed it. So he claims that he never sold his shares. Yeah, but the thing is,
he instigated that. He asked for it. He agreed to the sum, and he received a further check. What he was doing then was he was 12 days into the partnership. He had good reason to get out. There was a strong chance he was going to get stung with debts that Apple couldn't pay. And of the three of them, Steve Jobs, Steve Wozniak, Ronald Wayne, he was the only one with employment, basically. So he was sensible to get out. But he negotiated it. He accepted 800 as a figure because there had to be a figure. And that was it. He was out of the partnership. But then 1 year later, less than a year, I'm off on this one now. Mike Markula made the company incorporated, which is really the start of how it is now. Yeah. And part of that, the process is you clear all possible claims behind. And Markula got Apple Inc. to buy the partnership out. So all three founders got money. If they didn't choose to say, I didn't know that bit. If he didn't choose to bank the check, tough is legally out. Yeah.
Yeah, and the entity he owned 10% of no longer exists is the point I'm making.
Sure.
Apple bought it out. But yeah, Apple's the current iteration, 50 anniversary is in January, I believe. So we can do this all over again, William.
Right. Get Paul McCartney back. Yeah. Okay.
Tim Cook will, double dip, right? Like, actually, we got it wrong.
Yeah, that sounds likely. Okay.
So, as part of my 50 anniversary celebration, I decided to watch with my wife. She'd never seen the film Pirates of Silicon Valley. I've brought it up here before.
Yeah. It's
been a while since I've watched it. It's not a great movie. It's a good movie. I will point out that John DiMaggio as a human actor in that movie is excellent because people might know him in my age group or younger as Jake the dog on Adventure Time. So just having him as a person in this movie being the comedic relief was very funny, and it took me out of the film a little bit. But
okay, human actor was a weird phrase there. I did not know where that was because I'm afraid I've never heard of. I've already forgotten the name of the show. Whatever he was that in. Yeah, I'm sure it was great, but
it was
didn't come to the UK. Okay,
absolutely transformative cartoon. Absolutely, one of the greats from the golden age of Cartoon Network, but the end of the golden age, you could say, because Cartoon Network is now dead. But anyway, we're off on a thing. We watched the film, and I forgot how dark they made Steve Jobs' character. Because, so my understanding is of all of the films, including the recent Steve Jobs biopic with Seth Rogen and what's his name?
The Aaron Sorkin.
Anyway, the Aaron Sorkin one. That one's fine. Obviously lacking accuracy because they flubbed a lot of things to get everyone in the same room on the same night. But my understanding is out of everything made in Apple, Pirates of Silicon Valley is still the most accurate to date as far as things that happened. But, and Apple has even said this, I think Wozniak has even said this, but the problem with that movie is they really want you to dislike the Steve Jobs character. They really want you to dislike the Bill Gates character. The movie is about them being quote unquote pirates that steal. So they stole from Xerox. They stole from each other. Bill Gates is a big bad guy. We want to boo him. And, and again, they didn't get anything historically objectively wrong, but they made Steve Jobs really more mean than I think he actually was. And there's a lot of debate about how mean he actually was, like to the woman who gave birth to Lisa and everything, like how that actually went. How cruel was he? My understanding is he was not cruel. He was mean, but he was not cruel. But anyway, that's all in the history books. It's an enjoyable movie. It is impossible to find. I think I ended up somewhere in Russia to get the movie.
Right.
So I don't know the legal rights to that. TNT made the movie for television, and then poof, they disappeared. I think Apple might have something to do with making that movie cease to exist. But what were your thoughts on that film?
I have never seen it. Would you believe? And actually, I think, given what you just said, we're not going to link to it in this week's show notes either. Let's not go down that route. I've seen trailers. I've seen the clips showing the impersonations, the wrong word, the performances of the two characters. I didn't get the darkness, but I got at least that Bill Gates was supposed to be a baddie. I kind of like that they were both baddies dramatically.
It was a good drama, but I don't think it fully captured, right? Like, because again, they upped everything to make it play better for television. So the moment when Bill Gates visits Steve Jobs, Jobs is in his rich mansion, which notoriously didn't have furniture, but in this film did have furniture. He was playing a very dramatic record, like opera, over like a thundercloud outside, and Bill Gates walks in and no one says anything to each other. He doesn't even look back to confirm that it's Bill Gates. He's facing the wall, and Steve Jobs yells at the top of his lungs, "You're stealing from us." So it was, yeah. I think you would enjoy it, William, actually. Just watch it, as a think piece. But anyway, you can watch 3 scenes from that movie on YouTube and get the whole thing. It's fine, but very fantastically done as far as portraying life in that time and the struggles of getting the company off the ground. What annoyed me about Jobs' portrayal, again, is he was just this, like, he would walk into the company and say, "How many hours have you been working today?" And the man at the desk is like, "I'm at 56 hours and proud, sir." And it's just like, really playing up this, I'm being super mean CEO guy. And my understanding is Jobs did push very hard, but again, that was not, just like you said in your interview with, was it David Pogue? He said a lot of these mythos around Jobs were a little overdone, over-exaggerated, and I think this movie might have been part of that over-exaggeration.
Okay. Still would like to work for him, but yes.
No, yeah, I'm sure he was definitely a difficult guy. But the reason I bring all this up is it's Apple's 50th, and if you are listening to this show, and I said something about ads earlier, you're going to hear ads in the show. If you don't want to hear ads, you can pay for Apple Insider Plus. That is our subscription payment podcast you can get through Apple Podcasts or Patreon. It's a little bit of money per month, and you get bonus stuff. It's great. This week, our bonus topic is going to be Apple 50 years from now, so 2076. Its 100th anniversary. What does that look like? So William and I are going to share some of our thoughts, predictions. Will Apple even make it another 50 years? So let's get into some of how Apple has been celebrating. So the first thing I want to point out, William, nothing consumer facing here.
Oh, goodness, you're right. Well, some of the quotes concerts were today at Apple special, so they were part performance, part demonstration of things. Like, I think in France there were demos of GarageBand from certain artists and things like that, and there were interviews as well as things like that. But I can't remember certainly the Apple Park Paul McCartney concert, that was private, and I believe not everybody got to go. You had to enter into a lottery to get into it. But then there are 164,000 people working for Apple, and Apple Park's big, but it's not that big. So, okay. But yes, I don't know what happened with Grand Central or the Shanghai one.
Yeah, public got to go to some of these. But my point is there wasn't like, I don't know, they didn't do like an Apple Music One radio push, or they didn't have like special T-shirts you could buy. I don't know, like there was no consumer component, no merch component, just no promotion, no social media push. There wasn't like a TikTok or an Instagram thing you could follow. Like it was just all very corporate level. Like, we're having a concert and Tim Cook's giving an interview and Eddie Q's being nostalgic. That was the level of celebration. Whereas I think some people out there were wondering if Apple would announce a product or something.
A 50th anniversary Macintosh.
Elisa. Yeah. So
no, I'm thinking of the 20th anniversary one that came out. Was it
right.
22 years or something? It was so delayed. Very good looking, but okay. I actually quite like this. It feels like they're celebrating, but they're not being immodest about it. They're not. Well, they lit up the Sydney Opera House, I suppose. So, yeah, modest is a funny word to use. Yeah, they low-keyed their high celebrations a bit. I hadn't thought
low-key Paul McCartney.
Yes.
I think it was fine. And I didn't really want more. Honestly, this is enough. We've talked ad nauseum about it on our website. Everyone's giving little speeches and things. Chris Espinoza gave an interview to the Wall Street Journal. Like, it's great. I love all the attention. I love all the looking back because I very much enjoy Apple's history. Mm-hmm. It is one of those things that feels like the embodiment of the American dream, right? This son of an immigrant adopted into a family, grows up a hippie, founds a company that becomes one of the greatest achievements in human history. Like, you can't, like, that is fairy tale level stuff, right? Pretty cool. And it's a company that we happen to like. Like, they could have easily turned out evil at any point, and some might argue that they are, but I think that we landed in a pretty good spot with what could have gone worse in so many different directions. Like, the comeback of Jobs being a part of this narrative and all of that, it's really fascinating. And then you look at Tim Cook, like, I'm reading the Apple in China book. I know I'm slow. I'm reading multiple things and slowly. So, but I really find the points of narrative where we get to hear about Tim Cook entering the scene for the first time and certain components is just like, wow, yeah, he really has been here like this whole time. And Eddie Q talking about joining the company, like, he has been with the company for 38 years, and he's talking about idolizing Steve Jobs as a high school student and then joining Apple, learning HyperCard and landing then in services and getting to iTunes and the online Apple store and all of that. Like, that's just fascinating to me to see how this trajectory goes. And I think one of the most surreal moments, as dumb as it sounds, is when Tim Cook rung. See, I did this. He rung. I understand. I am from Tennessee, and that is not the correct parlance, right? He rang in the NASDAQ.
Oh, as in he
bell.
phoned someone. Yes, he rang.
Yeah, he rang a bell.
Anyway, the NASDAQ opening thing. Yes.
Yeah. So he rang the. I want to say rung so badly. I believe it's in the headline. Yes, it is. So forever put in there as the wrong word. Thanks, Tennessee.
He rung the bell. That sounds okay. So we are off on one here.
It depends on who you talk to. I got a nasty email. I feel self-conscious about it now. I want to point it out. It's probably wrong. It doesn't matter.
There was this bell, and it made a noise.
It made a noise. Yeah. So anyway, the most surreal moment was watching this video because NASDAQ recorded it from drones and stuff. Oh, and it's kind of funny. It's 12 minutes long.
Really?
Yeah. And the first minute, you're like, why is this 12 minutes long? Well, you start it and someone walks up to the podium. There's a crowd of people, and in the front row is a series of every Apple executive from Apple's leadership page, which already surreal because you never see them all in the same space together.
Right. Well, obviously, you don't go to Cafe Max at Apple Park as often as I do, but yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, think about it. Ever since we got these live these pre-recorded events, they pass along to each other with dramatic drone shots, and
that's true.
Very rarely are they ever in the same scene together. So they're always standing in this empty space. Mm-hmm. But here are all these people standing in a row, all these executives that you would recognize, and up walks this person and introduces Tim Cook, and then up walks Tim Cook. And he gives a speech, and it's a good speech. It's the same thing he wrote in his letter. You know, we're happy to be here, started in a garage, and now we're here. And then doesn't ring the bell. And then dramatic piano music's playing in the background of this video the whole time. And it's just drone shots of the crowd, and then back to Tim Cook, and then drone shots of the crowd, and then back to Tim Cook. And then suddenly, randomly, they'll start applauding and cheering. And then you realize they filmed the entire portion where they're getting photo ops. And you're just awkwardly watching them all stand around waiting for it to be time to ring the bell. And then finally they ring in the bell. But yes, this whole video is 12 minutes long. But it was funny seeing all these executives in the background kind of milling around, chatting with each other, smiling, and it was anyway, just
Were they on their iPhones like normal
no.
people? Oh, okay.
No, they were just hanging out waiting for the photo ops. Now, what's even crazier is half of these people will not be there probably in a year. So,
Wow.
yeah.
The
And
last
Tim Cook.
gathering. Goodness. Okay.
So, did you see this video of Tim Cook going to Apple's like history thing? I think they must have
Yes.
filmed it in. It looked like the observatory to me, but that's my guess.
Sorry, I'm not sure. Was it Wall Street Journal that showed him Apple's archive, things he hadn't seen? So I found that fascinating, but I didn't really think about the background. That was filmed at Apple.
Yeah, it looks like they set up a little stand at the observatory because Cook even says it in this segment. They don't have this set up anywhere. They don't have a museum. He's never seen any of this before because it's all sitting in a filing cabinet somewhere. They pulled it out for this video. So a lot of it was the first time he'd ever seen it. The first patent application Apple ever did, right?
Yeah.
It was a cute little bit, but I found it interesting, like them showing, here's a prototype iPod, here's the prototype Apple Watch that Cook wore on stage to reveal the Apple Watch. Like, and of course, then afterwards, Cook was like, all right, put all this back in the cabinet. I don't want to see it ever again.
I did see, actually, that apparently somewhere in Apple Park, they have put a display out, I was going to say public-facing. It's not open to public, but on display is a series of iMacs throughout the years. So there's at least a little nod to it now in the set decoration around Apple Park, or who knows how temporary it is. But I like the photograph I saw. Yeah.
Is there anything specific that jumps out to you from the 50-year anniversary celebration? Any interview, any tidbit?
Well, you mentioned Chris Espinosa earlier. He is the only man that's been there practically from the start. He was employee number 8. And although he's done all sorts of other things in that 50 years, he's never left Apple. And I mean, he comes up a lot in, say, in David Pogue's book, in Apple Confidential 2.0, Oren Lindsmeyer's book from about 20 years ago. Yeah, a big figure, an important figure in Apple, but quite a quiet, low-key interview. And the thing that I really liked was that he basically said he could never be fired, even though Apple kept laying off people, because he'd been there so long, his severance package would have been so expensive. And I thought, job security on his mind, even now. I like it. What about you? Was there anything there apart from the bell and Paul McCartney, obviously?
Well, I didn't give it a lot of attention just because I've already spent so much time thinking about Apple and its history that a lot of this was recap, you know, how great are we kind of stuff. And
well, you say that, but isn't Microsoft's 50th next year, the year after? Let's see how low-key they play it then. I have a feeling they might go a little bit more hyper. Actually, especially because Apple's done all this. You got Paul McCartney, we'll get John Lennon. I see some difficulties.
They'll get Jay-Z or something. What's funny to me is, again, watching Pirates of Silicon Valley, is the start of Microsoft basically coming from this quote-unquote theft of the operating system from Apple. I know that's all embellished, of course, but there is some truth to it, and I find it very fascinating that these rivals / business partners continue this back and forth. And of course, the whole film opens with the actor playing Bill Gates on the Macworld display behind the actor that playing Steve Jobs at that event, announcing the investment into Apple that saves them ultimately. And the crowd's booing them, of course. So I don't know. I don't have anything that stands out. The Eddie Q interview was funny just because he kind of joined this Dude Bro podcast show.
Yeah. No, I heard about that. He explained all those strange credit card charges.
I thought this was known.
Well, so once you said it, that's why it must make sense. But it's the first time I've seen an Apple exec explain it.
Yeah, I didn't emphasize it in the story. If I didn't know that it wasn't known, because I knew it, so maybe I should have emphasized it more. But he got to talking about iTunes, and how it got started. And I was like, yeah, sure, that makes, record labels told them to pound sand, literally. It was his quote.
Okay.
But he says that they aimed for the 99-cent price point because of consistency. Every song you click, it's going to be $1. You don't have to go check. So I like the song, buy. I like the song, buy. But they also wanted that 99-cent price point. And the reason why the industry couldn't do it is because it would cost $0.25 to run the credit card for 99 cents. And Apple would have to eat that quarter and literally lose money on every transaction. But what they ended up doing was basically putting a little bit of trust in the customers to spend money, which they were correct in doing, they're not going to just buy one song. They're going to buy a bunch. They're going to buy an album. They're going to do this. They're going to do that. And they would leave the transaction open for 12 to 24 hours. He didn't put a number to it. He started to, and then he
Yes.
then he hedged. He was like, we kept it open for some period of time, like a day or something. Anyway, which is true. It's still kind of seemingly random amounts of time. But to this day, when you make an iTunes purchase, it does not immediately debit your card, usually. But yes, back then, 99 cents would have bankrupted Apple because of the transaction fees. So it lets you buy 4, 5, 6, 10, 100 songs. Doesn't matter. As long as all the purchases are made within like an 8 to 24 hour period. At some point, it arbitrarily closes the transaction, and then you get a itemized receipt with everything you just purchased and a total, and only one transaction fee. And that's how Apple made iTunes work. To this day, App Store, iTunes, Apple TV, whatever, it works the same way. I will go and buy a movie, and then I'll go buy a TV series, and then I'll go buy another movie, another thing, and then I'm like, when is it going to hit? Because I think there's a financial amount too. Right. When is it going to hit? When is it going to hit? And then at some point, randomly, $60 debited from my Apple card. There it is. Because it was, I don't know, waiting for me to make all the transactions I was going to make.
So if you were mean, you could buy one track from one album once a week and make sure Apple gets stung for the full charge and loses money.
He said they were hit every now and then with the dollar, but it was so fleetingly rare that the profits made up the difference. But yeah, you're right. Sometimes someone did buy just one song, and that's how it happened.
This episode is brought to you by Bartender, the Mac menu bar utility that I thought I wouldn't need anymore because Apple added all of those options to macOS Tahoe for managing the icons in your menu bar. You need Bartender 6. Completely reworked for macOS Tahoe, it is still the much better way to control what apps you see in your menu bar and when. Later today, for example, is my next section of uploading documents to my copy editor and publisher, and I'm going to do it through Dropbox, as I always do. But while I'm actually doing it, Dropbox will be right there in my menu bar where I can see and where I can check it. But then when I'm done, Dropbox, gone, vanished. Because Bartender will tell it to. With Bartender, you can have apps only appear in the menu bar when they are doing something for you. Or you can have them appear all the time because you use them a lot. Or you can have them appear never. And actually, there's a one in the middle. Appear only when you want them to. Bartender also lets you arrange the menu bar apps so that they stay in the same place, which you can hear the irritation. It was famously a problem with Apple's solutions. So finally, you got this muscle memory. Yeah, you know which one you want, you know where it is. Instead of you're constantly having to peer through which one is it in the menu bar? And actually, speaking of peering, I really like this. With one click, you can use Bartender to search those menu bar items by name. It's one of those things where you never know you need it until you've got it. And actually, in a similar thing, just before you and I started talking, I was beginning to play with Bartender presets. I'm looking at how, when I'm using, say, Logic Pro, there are certain menu bar apps that are useful. So let's have Bartender 6 show me only those. And then when I'm done, have Bartender go back to showing me my regular set. It's just remarkable, isn't it, how much you can do with menu bar apps if you have Bartender 6. So if your Mac's menu bar is getting crowded, check out Bartender at macbartender.com. bartender.com to try it out. And use the discount code AppleInsider to support the channel and get 10% off Bartender 6. And thank you to Bartender for supporting the Apple Insider Podcast.
In that same interview, I did find this funny. The podcast hosts were teasing, like, one of them really liked the Apple Vision Pro, and they're talking about F1, and he's like, F1 racing's great, you need to get more of that stuff in Vision Pro, but what Apple really needs to do is to get into simulation racing, which is video games. And
wait. They, instead of saying games, and I say simulation racing.
So
okay.
It's actually
that
like a genre. It's called sim racing, like it's a genre.
Okay.
Versus arcade racing, right? So like listeners, you might know the difference. Need for Speed is a game franchise that is very much a arcade racer. It has nitrous oxide and you drift around corners, and gaming physics are all broken. It's not the real world. And then you have sim racing, which is Gran Turismo, where you have to brake around corners and think about fuel usage and tire wear.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
So these guys were talking about sim racing, and Eddie Q just pops in suddenly and is like, "Oh, we already got you guys that," and he called it sim racing mistakenly, but he meant iRacing. He says, "We got you that. iRacing is coming to Apple Vision Pro soon," and he's right. Because as a part of Vision OS 26.4, we got the NVIDIA upgrade that allows better game streaming and individual games. We mentioned the Flight Simulator tool before, but this is different. This is iRacing. It's a racing sim that's been around for a while. They even partner with, IndyCar and NASCAR to build full-size racing rigs, steering wheels, brake pedals, and multiple screens that surround you to give you your windshield and side mirrors, and let you run a full racing rig. Well, they're going to be in Vision Pro, and you can put on the headset and stream a race to you. You can hook up your steering wheel to Vision Pro and race in fully immersive racing. Now, how is this going to work? Hard to say. Foveated rendering is here. Like, that's great. But how performant is it going to be? I'm not sure. I have a PSVR 2 and Gran Turismo. So I fully intend on trying to compare the two in terms of fidelity. How does the PSVR compare hooked up to a hardware PlayStation 5 versus Apple Vision Pro streaming the content from a remote server, and how that's going to work out.
But do either of these simulators get so real that rising fuel prices is part of the game? Is that cool at all? What does foveated mean? I know the term. I may even have actually used it, but I'm not clear what it is.
Foveated rendering is something used in headsets. We heard a lot about it when Sony was first getting into the game. MetaQuest does this too. Basically, as long as your headset supports eye tracking, which most do now, the game is able to render only what you're looking at the highest resolution, and then it slowly reduces resolution into your periphery. So if you take a screenshot in Apple Vision Pro, what you're looking at is in complete and utter focus, and the screenshot around it is blurry. So if you ever see us post images from Apple Vision Pro on Apple Insider, you'll see that in action.
It just sounds like the amount of processing that would involve to, they're looking at this bit, so they're not looking at that bit. Trying to, okay.
Well, that's why there's a whole separate chip in Apple Vision Pro for this.
Oh, okay.
In fact, iRacing is going to run at a higher resolution and performance in Apple Vision Pro versus MetaQuest, because of all the extra processing and stuff going on, and the NVIDIA component that Apple's included in Apple Vision Pro.
Okay.
It's going to be interesting.
I was going to ask you about Apple Vision Pro, actually, because you mentioned right at the top about Artemis launching. I presume that was watchable through Apple Vision Pro as well. I watched it online a bit. I'm suddenly doubting myself. Why did I think there was an immersive video version of this? Was there, and did you watch the launch?
I don't think there was a live version. I think that someone filmed it with a Blackmagic camera.
Oh, okay.
let's see. Yeah, so it says here filming, not streaming. Because if that was the case, I would have probably checked it out.
Yeah.
But yeah, they've filmed previously space launches. Cosmic Perspective, I believe, is their name. It'll be cool, I guess. I mean, I've never attended a launch in person, so maybe this will help place you there. But again, you're watching a rocket from more than multiple football fields away launch into space, whereas in 3D, like, yeah, you're going to probably get some of the immersion from the sound, and maybe some of the wind and stuff will carry on in the microphone. So it'll let you feel physically there, but I don't know how well versus being able to jump camera angles, because the feed I watched for the Artemis launch was various angles of the rocket taking off, jumping on board to see various components being jettisoned. Like, that was very interesting. So I wonder how this is going to look and feel.
Right. It is just one of the things that makes me a little bit tempted about the Vision Pro, and I'm surprised about that, because I would have thought, I like working at these machines. It would be a productive thing. No, just want to enjoy that and slow horses. But it's an expensive way to enjoy these two. Yeah.
There was something funny about the Tim Cook thing also. When he was looking at the prototype stuff, he was asked, what do you think Apple's greatest success? And obviously Tim Cook has said multiple times this week that the iPhone reveal was his favorite thing to ever happen at Apple. I didn't know this, but Eddie Q mentioned he brought his kids and wife to the iPhone reveal, thinking that it would be a important moment in history. And his kids were 8 at the time. And I think that's really cool to think, like, being able to say, I was literally 8 years old at the iPhone reveal.
There are actually I can't remember, blanked on the name, a famous photographer got an invitation to when Steve Jobs launched the next computer, and he travelled thousands of miles to get back to the US, to wherever it was. And it's specific because I couldn't face my children and tell them I was invited to a Steve Jobs launch and didn't go. Amazing the impact that man had. And then, of course, next was a failure. The iPhone, not so much. Right. Okay.
But then, so Cook was then asked, what do you think Apple's greatest failures are in the last 50 years? And of course, Cook didn't give an example, but he said there have been many failures in Apple's history. Probably coughed and said Newton or something. But I think it's funny that he's willing to acknowledge that there have been failures, so that's nice. But it left a little bit of an air, because he says, when there is a major failure at Apple, we wake up the next day, we look at it, and we put our, get back to the desks and get back to work. And some would ask the question of, what about the Apple Vision Pro in that narrative? And I still am highly adamant that Apple Vision Pro is not a failure in Apple's eyes. I think it's done exactly what they wanted it to do. But I'm with you right now. Apple Vision Pro is very much an excellent media device, just like the iPad is an excellent media device. But I don't think that takes away from its ability to be productive as well. So
I've always been a bit annoyed at people saying the iPad is a media consumption device, because they tend to either say or imply at least that it's only good for that. And I use mine a lot. I was editing a Logic Play this week on the iPad, having a very good time. Thank you.
People are building and designing in Vision Pro. The enterprise is getting a lot of use out of it. People are doing, like I said, flight training in Vision Pro. Soon we're going to have people doing racing sims. And that's no joke. I didn't get to it, but iRacing is an actual subscription. You can pay $140 for 2 years of access. Basically, that's their best deal. But I think it's like $10 a month or $12 a month if you want it monthly, just to access the game itself. Like, it's maddeningly expensive, because they're treating it more as enterprise software than a game. But people use it as a game. It's a game. You can go race on cars and stuff. It's cool, but like, it's professionals are using it, and they're charging you professional money. But anyway, I think it'll be fun to see that launch. I think more people should and will be showing up to historic events with these very expensive Vision Pro style cameras. I want to see Apple invest more money. We're multiple years in now and still have yet to see any feature length anything, let alone TV show length anything. The longest we got was that submarine film. And a couple of episodes skewing into 16 minutes or so. I think the dogs one being 2 parts, which was smart. I mean, I'll put it this way. So some of my favorite shows on Cartoon Network, right? So Amazing World of Gumball, Adventure Time, right? These are all cartoons. Yes, they're children's shows.
I was thinking you're making these titles up myself, but okay, yeah.
They are 11-minute segments.
Oh, right.
Right.
Okay.
It is not as if humans do not know what an 11-minute television show is. They're usually playing back-to-back segments because they have to fill 22 minutes. But, and I'm not even talking about cartoons. Make them live action, that's fine. But a real serialized series brought to Apple Vision Pro with weekly episodes has yet to be done.
Yeah.
But here we are talking about recording a space launch that already happened, and they're doing great. They're up in space, apparently fighting Outlook, which is,
I didn't know that. That's funny. Okay, right.
One of the calls they made this morning was that they have 2 versions of
support.
Outlook.
Oh, no, you're kidding.
And neither of them work, and Microsoft had to remote into the spacecraft to help them fix Outlook.
Okay, all right.
So I want to get to Siri and Apple Intelligence.
Yeah.
So there's a little bit here today, nothing crazy. First off, iOS 26.5 Beta 1 launched, and everyone was like, oh, there's no AI. Now, I want to point out again, and listeners of the show, you guys know, but I'm going to say it anyway. The AI, Apple Intelligence, is not bundled with updates. So when you get that update, it does not contain the AI upgrade. That is not how Apple does it. They push a backend update, and then you're going to get an alert in settings saying Apple Intelligence is being set up, and it will be available momentarily. That's when you know they're changing something with Apple Intelligence.
Okay.
This hasn't happened. Now, there's 2 things, and I'm happy to concede, right? Like, if this is really where Apple is right now and they are not pushing anything until September, fine. I'm not arguing that is impossible. I'm just arguing that seems odd given everything else, but maybe the timing got bad. I will once again say kudos to the company with some restraint. That's all I'm saying. But I'm also with you. It's long overdue, and there's some things that need fixing. But in any case, at any point during the 0.5 beta cycle, Apple could press a button and push this new update to users. I don't think it's going to happen out of the blue. I don't think it's going to happen without some kind of announcement somewhere, even if it's the briefest little snippet from Tim Cook on CNBC saying, yeah, we're kind of bringing out the Gemini update, and then great. And that's it. Like, not even a newsroom post for people to link to. But I expect Apple has to say something before they launch it. But just keep in mind, it will not be included in the update bundle.
Okay. We're again at this point we've been before where I think we're both fine with waiting. I am less confident than you that it will work because I have a worse experience. David Hodge emailed both of us, by the way. Hello, David. And he's had some interesting times that worked really well, and so much so that he thinks Apple might be testing things. Whereas this morning, as we record this, I asked Siri to just set an alarm. And of course it didn't do it, but for once it actually said, who should I send the alarm to? And then when I said, nobody, cancel, it's, oh, right, I'll send it to... Yeah, right. I've noticed that Siri is less able to interpret, shall we say, the more creative words that it sometimes gets me to say to it by the end of a process. So I had to go across the room and find the phone and stop it doing something. So, yeah, I believe it when it's fixed. Yeah.
Yeah, well, I mean, in the infinite timeline of the universe. This is going to get resolved. It's just the question is when.
We've pushed it back from 26.4 to spring to WWDC to the heat death of the universe.
Yes, the heat death of the universe.
Okay.
I don't think it's going to take that long. I am still confident if Apple has something ready, which I don't know, but if Apple has something ready that they can roll it out this spring. If they're not confident, or if they just are happy to wait for September, then they will wait. Like that. This is that company. Clearly, they're okay with waiting. I would like them not to, if only to get some of these dissenters to hush a little bit and maybe hopefully prove them wrong with some actual good stuff. But as we've seen with the rest of the AI industry, there's no need to rush. It's imploding around itself. Instead of it being a pop, it's more of a deflation. But things are not looking great for these companies. Claude just leaked all of its code.
I missed that. Really?
Yeah. That was like this morning or yesterday. But yeah, Claude is suffering a huge breach. And someone made the joke. Well, at least finally, humans are seeing Claude's code base for the first time, because that they didn't look at it at Anthropic anyway. That was a silly joke. I
like Claude. Actually, I should say Claude's been a sponsor, and I think might be again. But okay,
but
right.
That's a very unfortunate thing to happen to them. But on top of that, and apparently a lot of it is quote unquote vibe coded slop. We're going to get to vibe coding in a moment. But we've seen the death of Sora and the OpenAI giving up on pornography, which is such a funny thing to happen in the tech industry, where embracing it is usually a sign that things have gone bad, but announcing that you're going to embrace it and then giving up on it is a next level indicator of bad. That is unheard of. We've never seen it before. That's how little runway they have right now, William. So the industry itself is in this weird loop of death. And they're trying to find their balance, and there will be winners and there will be losers at the end of this. We're going to see what happens. I don't think it's the destruction of the entire paradigm. AI isn't going anywhere. That's not what I'm saying. I'm not literally doomsdaying this, but Apple is weirdly not a part of it, and maybe for the best. I do think we're going to see something from Apple. They have clearly built something with this Gemini connection that they've been working on. They are working on APIs that bring apps in. So if you have ChatGPT's app installed on your phone, you can have an API call out to it, right? There's a lot of interesting things being worked on to make this the best it can be. And I'm with you. You're skeptical that how any of this is ever going to work because it hasn't worked so far or whatever.
Well, actually, no, just to be checked here, it's not skepticism because it hasn't worked so far. It's skepticism because things have been made worse and left worse.
And left alone.
That seems like an organizational thing to me, which then makes me think it's systemic, which then makes me think, am I trusting this organization to do it right later? So there's more than there.
Yeah, there's a lot. And so to be clear, the latest rumor, which I don't know how new it is, it's just being restated. Apple is again working on multiple commands in one command. But instead of continuing, adjust the shades and change the light in my office. Both of those are related to Apple Home, which technically you can do. That's a compound command. This is not that. This is multiple strings. So call the doctor, create a reminder, add to my grocery list, and when was the last time my cat ate from the cat bowl, right? Completely separate things, basically creating multiple threads at one time. That is what is being worked on.
Oh, I actually, this might be a solution that I'd be able to say, set an alarm. No, don't send it to somebody. No, really, set an alarm. No, honestly, please set an alarm. Not for that time, for this. I could just all say that in one sentence instead of spaced out slightly. Okay, so they have to be separate things.
I don't think. Well, no, it's more of Apple wants to meet you where you are, so you can do compound commands, but now eventually you will be able to do multiple threaded commands. So theoretically, you'd be able to do compound commands and multi-threaded commands at the same time. It's meant to just be responsive to whatever you say is kind of the goal. No more limitation on, oh, actually, you need to say it this way. You need to say, switch the lights on instead of turn the lights on. Like they don't want it to be specific anymore. They just want it to meet you where you are. And this is part of that.
I think it's right back at the start when Siri was announced. Scott Forstall made a big thing of saying, you can say these things like, what's the weather like tomorrow? Or just, will I need an umbrella today? Mm-hmm. He kept saying how you didn't have to learn commands for it. And then we learned that you kind of sort of did.
This is the problem. Yeah, because machine learning was deterministic and there was only so many phrases they programmed in. And there are, how many? 107 ways to say it's raining in the UK? I don't know if they got all of those into the...
No. Okay.
Now, with the AI stuff, technically, it's not deterministic, and it is limited only by human experience, but therefore, it should not be limited by your vocabulary because it should have more vocabulary than you. It should have more inference points than you. Again, it's not thinking, it's not knowledgeable, it's just a referenceable encyclopedia you can talk to. That's all it is. Anyway, it's interesting. I'm going to die on this hill that Apple is 100% capable and in the place of being the best at this whole thing when it launches, and we are all so eagerly awaiting for that launch. We just don't know when, and everyone's like, but when, and we got fed all of this rumor junk of, spring, 26.4, and the second that doesn't happen, we're all pointing at Apple saying, oh, you're awful, you're bad, when instead we, there's probably some internal thing at Apple that forced them to push back to September, if that is the case, because I'm going to say it again, we don't know. Just because 26.5 did not have the initial relaunch of Apple Intelligence doesn't mean it's not happening in 26.5. We don't know yet. So the proclamation saying it's not here, it's not coming, we don't know until we get to 26.6 or WWDC, right? That's the only time we're going to know what's not in 26.5 is when 26.5 launches without it. The beta is not indicative of anything. Anyway, so everyone relax. If it's not now, it's September. I'm happy waiting for it to work, but I do know everyone is getting impatient. So let's hope Apple gives us something in the meantime.
I think I struggle with the idea of Apple launching anything significant now when WWDC is so soon. Because it feels like then you've got to do something bigger then.
But consumers don't care about WWDC. It's invisible to them. June is just another month. But
it is Apple's tentpole of when they announce big things. So if they've announced a big thing and they come out and they say, like what we said last week, that would get noticed, that would get reports, that would be Apple's failed again.
Well,
kind of thing, and people will notice that.
Yeah. April launching this set of new back-end stuff for allowing Siri to be better for consumers, and it's all consumer-facing. Developers can obviously tap into it, but this initial launch is definitely going to be consumer-based. It's definitely going to be Apple's control. And then coming in at WWDC and saying, oh, and here's all the APIs that let you tap into that. That is very Apple and very possible. Because, again, getting the users to understand what's coming first, I think, is most important. And what's announced at WWDC doesn't matter to users until it breaks containment. And that very rarely happens before the actual release in the fall. So,
well, I see your point, but DC gets headlines, people notice headlines, so it does have an impact.
Yeah.
Also, I realised, I don't know how much of this is developer dependent, how much is going to be all within Apple, or will they rely on people over the beta test period, June, September?
The stuff you have trouble with is Apple, and that is the stuff they're rolling out first, right? So that could happen tomorrow. We could get a beta 2 next week, I guess. Monday, Tuesday, we could get a beta 2, and then they could flip the switch on sending the new stuff. That isn't for consumer testing. That is for, hey, developers who tie into Apple Intelligence models and Siri, does your stuff work right now with the new backend? That is what they're looking for. So if they do this during this beta period, it's to test that the backend is functionally able to work with all the developer tools. And then that rolls out to customers in 26.5, and they get access to that new Siri, that new tool that makes everything better for them without having to change anything about their phone or apps or anything. And then at WWDC, we get to see round 2, because that's how leaks have defined it, as this is a 2-pronged release cycle.
Well, I'll tell you what, you're going to die on the hill a minute ago. I will take a small flesh wound and say that we will not get improved Siri before WWDC.
That's fine. And if that happens, I'm happy to be wrong here, because, again, that only means that Apple is pushing to make sure they get it right. But one thing they got wrong, they accidentally launched Apple Intelligence in China.
Oh, yes, I heard about that. Well, I heard the headline. Basically, do we know what actually happened? Well, hang on, because there's a problem, because App Intelligence is everywhere. You think it's all fine. China, there's all sorts of government regulations and things that I think I actually assumed had been solved, but they obviously weren't. Do we know what happened to do this system?
Somebody pressed the wrong button. The minute this is why I'm emphasizing this all so strongly. 26.5 beta 1 went out, and then maybe within 15 minutes, the Apple Intelligence in China update went out.
Okay.
As a push to the back end for users in China running 26.5 beta 1. People noticed this. What was weird, and why we knew it was broken from the get-go, is you had access to China's AI and ChatGPT in China, which is a big no-no. That's what the whole point of this is. They don't want access to ChatGPT, only China's stuff. So Apple quickly pulled that AI update and reverted everyone back to the previous stuff, separate from the beta. Has nothing to do with the beta, people. So that's coming, maybe with 26.5. Apple Intelligence will be able to work in China. This is also exemplifying the fact that Apple Intelligence is able to operate independent of third-party AI. It has nothing to do with ChatGPT integration, right? It's able to swap in a different model, which in this case in China, they have multiple different models they're going to be using apparently. So yeah, that was just an oopsie. Maybe this is going to be part of a larger global rollout of different AI models, and who knows? We'll see.
I do feel for whoever pushed the button, though. Yeah.
It happens.
Yes, it does.
Apple did, though, deliberately remove a vibe coding app from the App Store called Anything.
Okay. What did Anything do? It presumably did anything, yeah.
It did anything. So basically, the idea of these vibe coding apps. Now, there's some very specific verbiage, because we're going to be talking about very similar things that are different. There's vibe coding, which is when a coder sits down to code an app using AI, versus a vibe coding app, which is an app that was developed by a developer and submitted to the App Store with the ability to vibe code apps.
Okay, yeah.
So first story we're going to talk about is these vibe coding apps. Now, apparently several of them appeared on the App Store last year. Apple started noticing them and stopping updates as early as November. And many of them have not received updates since November. Apple is stalling on that, citing a guideline 2.5.2 saying that apps that can generate code or alter code or exist outside of the sandbox are not allowed. And that's what these apps were doing. They were building entire apps and allowing you to run them separate from the app. I don't know if they were using developer certificates to do this. I didn't install one and try it, but I'm assuming it was basically installing a separate app bundle and signing a certificate with a fake developer account or something. That's what a lot of these old pre-jailbreak things did. That's kind of how Delta used to work. If you have a teen in your life that wants to skin their phone with a bunch of icons, sometimes you can install an app that installs a developer certificate that allows you to change all the app icons on your device at once. That's the similar, slightly sketchy, weird things that's going on here.
Okay.
Apple put a stop to it. And I think Anything was the first one booted. Anything wouldn't say why, wouldn't provide the exact details why. Apparently in their booting, Apple mentioned the developer 2.5.2 guideline, but otherwise we don't know what caused them a full boot, whereas everyone else was mostly just getting blocked from an update.
Okay.
Now, the other side of this is Apple is encouraging vibe coding, but with an Xcode. So Xcode lets you install third-party AI like Claude that will help you make an app from nothing. And this is useful to anyone from if you are a seasoned developer, know everything, you're going to run into niche problems that can't be solved easily, that don't have any documentation whatsoever.
Sure.
Right?
Yeah.
That's where these vibe coding things can help tremendously. Or say you wrote a code line for something 20 years ago using a very specific language. You only needed that one time.
Yeah.
You don't need to go relearn that language. You can get help fixing it from vibe coding.
Okay.
Or if you're a complete novice and you're just now getting into this, vibe coding can help you get started from an idea to something on paper to an app that is submitted to the App Store very fast.
Okay.
There's a problem, and this is something we can debate a little bit. We had a discussion about this in editorial in our Slack channel.
Yeah.
There's a problem that Apple is embracing, let's say.
I obviously missed this discussion, so I don't know where this is going, but I'm intrigued.
The App Store is being flooded with apps because of how easy it is to now make them.
Oh, right. Yes. Yes.
Apple likes this because more apps,
Sure.
more potential for income. But I don't know that they're doing anything to stem the flood of garbage. And I don't think they care to either. And that's going to be a problem for users. That's going to be a problem for developers. But Apple, in this case, probably likes the income more than they care about this inconvenience, because there's this thing in the middle, right? We have the pros getting help and the novices getting help. And then there's these guys in the middle who are basically grifting their way to success. They're going to make an app every 2 days, submit it to the App Store, charge $1 for it, and see if 5 people buy it. And then rinse, repeat until they make some money.
Okay. Yeah.
And then there's also people who see an app like Widgetsmith and say, I want that app, but I'm not paying for it. Vibe code it, sign it with a free developer certificate, and then install it on their phone.
Right. Okay. Now that one I get. Yes, that's a problem.
So and all of this is happening while Apple is getting flooded with App Store submissions, which is actually slowing the review process, causing some apps to go days, if not more than a week, without being seen by App Review after a submission. It's creating quite the logjam, but again, one Apple welcomes by saying, hey, vibe coding, it's a thing. We welcome all these new apps. Now, maybe Apple has to expand its review process, but it's all very interesting to watch because clearly Apple wants this, but I worry that there's no garbage siphoning control. They're just welcoming everything in. Are you familiar with what happened when the App Store first launched?
I remember that there were lots of fart apps. I remember there was one that cost, was it, I might be exaggerating, $10,000, and all it did was have a red button on or something so you could wave it around.
It said, I am rich.
There you go.
Yes.
Yeah. But, yeah.
And it was the highest in-app purchase you could set at the time, which was $10,000.
Right.
But no, yeah, the bigger problem was the fart apps, and I believe meditation, basically, that had a big button that said meditate on it. Apple literally put in the guidelines, we don't need any more of these.
Right. I didn't know that.
Like an app needs to have more functionality than just this. So again, Apple welcomes this proverbial flood of apps, sure, because of income reasons. But I wonder if this is going to lead to changes in how we define minimum viable apps. One of the things that I've paid attention to as a nerd is the software fronts. Google Play has long been lost to the spam and garbage system for a long time. You go there and there's clone apps, copycats, theft apps where you can just steal from the internet, like movies and downloads, and like it's crazy. If you just want free music on Google Play, you can just go download an app that's literally called Free Music Now, and you install it, and then it lets you pirate music all day. I mean, of course, then you have to face the legal issues, but yeah, that's just available on Google Play. Theoretically, they're supposed to stop that.
Yeah.
Apple doesn't have that problem, but they do have a problem. We've seen people suing Apple over copycat apps and other issues because of this stuff, and I worry this is only going to get worse. I look at PlayStation Network, and it is filled with garbage, $2 video games that I'm sure are the minimum viable, what you could call a video game, just to get it on the PS Network, named closely to a different popular title so that some mom mistakenly buys it, like Marge Simpson, right?
Yeah.
Like, it's horrifically bad and obvious, but PlayStation Network lets it through. And I just wonder, what's the point of having these platforms be the judge, jury, executioner if they're not going to police these platforms for quality?
There must be a Microsoft or a Windows App Store. I wonder what it's like there. Do they all?
Empty.
Okay.
Because Windows, you can install. Even Apple's Mac App Store is pretty empty, but
True.
Windows App Store even more so, because you can just install whatever you want from the web. So, it's weird. Like, because the web is full of trash. You go to Steam, it is full of trash games. So it's a wider issue. This is not an Apple problem. Vibe coding didn't create this problem. It's just exacerbating it. I just wonder if there's a place where Apple can fix this. But that's a different discussion for another time. I just find this whole thing funny. I don't think Apple is doing anything wrong blocking and banning these vibe coding apps. Like, I should not be able to go to the App Store on my iPhone, download an app, and have it generate a calculator for me. Like, that's weird. Like, if I need a calculator, Apple has one installed, or I go to the App Store and buy pCalc.
I was
right?
just going to say pCalc, yes. Okay.
Yeah. Like, that is clearly not an expectation of the platform. And the people who expect that on the platform go to Android. I don't know. Like, it's just not built for that. And maybe regulation will force Apple's hand like they did with emulators and require vibe coding. I don't know where this is going. But right now, I don't think Apple is in the letter of the law. They did write this rule, but I do think they are acting correctly based on how it is written and how they've enforced these rules before. So we'll see where it goes.
Okay. Interesting.
Yeah. So one last thing, and sorry for all the topics William doesn't care about this week, so I've been talking a lot.
I am interested in them. I just, yeah, okay. But yeah, let's have
joking.
more games now. Yes?
This is not
No?
this is not a game. This shows how much William knows. This is Crunchyroll, which is an anime streaming service owned by Sony. They purchased.
I do know about this because you've mentioned it before, but I've never seen it, and I didn't know where you could get it. But now I could, maybe.
Yeah. Crunchyroll is a controversial platform because they kind of became this conglomerate. They bought up all the small guys. They bought up Funimation Streaming, which was a separate service. I don't mind that they own everything because it's just, then I only have to pay one guy. But I understand the problem of monopolization of content, like look at Netflix and other things. But Crunchyroll is the go-to. There are other things still available. I think High Rush or something. There's some other streaming services in anime that are still available that have exclusive content. So Crunchyroll is not the end all be all, but it does have pretty much everything you could want from Dragon Ball Z to Naruto to whatever anime thing that you're really into. Those were very basic examples. I'm very much more of a niche enjoyer of anime, so I'm not even going to get into what I watch. But like one of the shows I'm enjoying right now is called You and Polar Opposites, which is a very cute rom-com about literal polar opposite characters who kind of fall in love with each other, dating thing. It's very, very sweet, very wholesome. Anyway, the point I'm making is Crunchyroll is finally a channel on the Apple TV.
Okay.
Channels, if you forgot, William, is this thing where you can subscribe in the Apple TV app to a service and view it within Apple's Apple TV app without going to a separate app. It's all integrated.
I genuinely do get mixed up between a channel and an app because there are so many UK services that I would have called channels. ITVX, for example, is an app rather than a separate subscription channel. I don't know. I just had to try to look at see if Crunchyroll is available here, and I realised I'm sitting on my Mac rather than my Apple TV, so I might
is
better luck.
In the UK.
Is it? Well, goodbye. I'm off to watch. I mean, if it's that good, I'm not coming back. Okay, I will look at it later.
It launched in multiple countries: EU specific, UK, Australia, and the United States and Canada. So it is in the Apple TV. Now, I wanted to bring this up because I am a fan. I use Crunchyroll. I paid for the annual subscription, but only for the premium. So I only wanted Crunchyroll because if you pay more, you can get access to the manga and other special discounts and stuff like that. I never paid for that stuff. If you do, you cannot take advantage of the Crunchyroll Apple TV channel, just period. The way this was implemented, and it's frustrating because other companies did not do this. HBO previously was an Apple TV channel, is no longer. I hope it comes back. But HBO previously let you do some tie-ins between HBO the channel and HBO the app. I think Peacock still lets you sign into Peacock using your Apple TV channel, right? It's not a requirement. Crunchyroll just did it this way. Okay. You cannot sign in to Crunchyroll and Apple TV using Crunchyroll, your app subscription and account. It is a totally new account, a totally new subscription, starting from zero. You can't import your Up Next. It is completely separate. So that is one big thing. If you pay for the manga version of this or whatever, stick with your subscription and stick with the external app. There's no way to do this without paying twice. I canceled my premium and moved to the Apple TV channel because all I pay for is premium, and that's what this is. It's $10 a month. There is no annual option, so I cannot save money. It's $20 extra a year. So
okay.
Yeah, $100 a year
still.
Yeah, because I want it in the TV channel, the TV app for sure.
Sure. Okay.
There is one other major problem because it is the entire catalog. It is all of the content, all of the subs and dubs. It's slowly rolling out. So Gachu Akita is if I said that correctly, is one of the very popular shows right now. Still being promoted in the Apple TV channel. It's not available in the Crunchyroll Apple TV channel currently because it is rolling out. They had to roll out their entire 50,000 show catalog.
Wow.
Like 50,000 episodes, 50,000 episode catalog. It takes a long time to get that much content onto a service. And to be clear, I have seen it change. The reason I brought up You and I Are Polar Opposites is because when it first launched, that was not there. By Monday last week, after it launched, it was there. So it is rolling out, it is being added. And once it's all there, it will just be there. Another example is Dragon Ball Z is there, but only in Japanese, even though it should have the English dub. So slowly rolling out, but it will get there, and because you are paying that full price for the full catalog. So don't worry about that. The one other major problem you're going to have is in Crunchyroll and apps like it, if Japanese text shows up on the screen, like if someone holds up their phone and they're looking at text messages and they're shown in Japanese, these apps generally put translated subtitles over top of the text automatically. It's baked into the show.
Right.
Those do not appear in Apple TV. So if you're watching a subbed show and it's Japanese and they're speaking Japanese out loud and you've got English subtitles on the bottom, that all works fine. You can customize your subtitles. That's all fine. But if Japanese text appears anywhere on the screen, you're not going to get told what it means.
Okay, but
yeah, it's a minor inconvenience. I've taken to, if I really want to know, pausing and using my phone to snap a photo and use the text translation feature, and it works fine. So again, not a deal breaker for me, but some might find that really intrusively annoying.
It does sound like you're paying more to get a worse service than you had.
In some ways, yes. I am like that's why I pointed out the negatives.
Sure.
What I am gaining is it's fully integrated into the Apple TV app, so I'm getting Apple's playback features and menu. It's one less app to have installed. You're not leaving Apple TV. It's a better experience. You get downloads and everything too. I prefer to watch all of my content inside the Apple TV app, and currently because Apple One and Crunchyroll are really the only things I subscribe to year round. That means everything I watch is in one app right now, and that's the Apple TV app. So that's I think that's a nice experience. I really like that.
I'm going to have to look, haven't I, and see whether it converts me.
You don't care about anime, that's fine. Not everyone likes it.
I mean, nothing against it. I'm especially drawn to it more than anything else. So I don't know, it'd be worth subscribing, but I think I should have a look at some of these shows somewhere, see what I'm missing out.
It's what I've mentioned to people before. Anime is a medium. This isn't an original idea, right? But anime is a medium. It's not a genre. It's filled with many, many, many things. I don't care if you grew up on Disney Channel watching Hannah Montana or watched or enjoyed Beyblade on 4Kids TV in the 90s. There's going to be an anime that you enjoy. If you like Bridgerton, there's an anime that you would enjoy. I promise you. Their anime is for everyone. Just like Disney Channel is for everyone. Studio Ghibli is for everyone. Crunchyroll has something that you would enjoy. You know what's really funny, William? To close this topic in the show, Drops of God originated as a manga, right?
Oh, right. Yes, I think I knew that. Yeah.
That was an Apple TV show. It is now an anime coming out on Crunchyroll.
Okay.
Which is going to veer closer to the manga, it seems. The main character is male instead of what Apple did with the show, making the main character female. But otherwise, it looks like it's going to be a faithful adaptation coming out for the spring season. I don't know that I care enough to watch it, but it's interesting that it's there because I really enjoy the live action show, and I have this very terrified feeling that if I watch the anime, I'm going to hate it. Because the decisions they made in the live action, I'm sure, differ enough from the anime one that I'm going to be like, I prefer the live action one. And that's weird coming from me because I'm very much the guy who would generally like the anime more, right, than the live action. But because of the order it came out in, and honestly the prestige and precision that they presented that television series, and believe me, everyone go watch Drops of God. It's actually it's excellent.
I get this, actually, because I went into Project Hail Mary adoring the book, and it was almost like, prove it. Can you be that good, can you? And now I absolutely adore both of them. So, yes, you come in loaded in certain ways, but you can be won over, in this case, I think, very easily, very quickly. But, okay.
Well, that's our show, I think. If you have any anime recommendations for William, send some his way.
Please do, yes.
Honestly, I would have to think about it, William. It would be such a tough one. You would be a tough one, but I am sure I could find something that you would find at least mildly amusing. I don't believe I could convert you entirely. You know what? Just like I will say this just off the top of my head, you're going to be one of those people that I could get you in the door with a Ghibli film and then help you further push into some kind of anime. That's my guess.
You realise it's just like with games. I'm not against any of this in any way. I don't have any distaste in any way. I just don't happen to have been taken by anything that I've seen so far. So, yeah, I could easily believe being converted into a fan. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, Porco Rosso is about a war-fighting pig who kills fascists from an air. He's a fighter pilot, and he kills fascists, and he loves killing fascists. It's a great, absolutely beautiful Studio Ghibli film. Very funny. Anyway, moving on. William, where can people find you on the internet?
Well, by the TV set, clearly. Watching this stuff somewhere, if I can get it in the UK, and you insist I can, but I've been disappointed before. Otherwise, William at AppleInsider.com, or I am on YouTube with a channel called 58 Keys, so that's very specifically for writers. Whereabouts are you, if people want to say to you, no, Crunchyroll, the non-app version is better?
Yeah, I'm sure there's definitely going to be... Look, there's a thing in anime, dubs versus subs. I have a feeling that that type of intense... Oh, yeah. People will argue which is better to watch all day long.
Subtitles. Of course it is.
Well, so... Yeah. Oh, yeah. Well, so here's my take on it, William.
Yeah.
And there's a hilarious... my wife showed me, I guess, a TikTok, if you want to call it, a short from somewhere on the internet of someone watching an anime with subs. But they're also trying to eat like a bowl of cereal. So every time they like go down to scoop, it like it's not showing the screen. So you hear them reading it in English. It's like, don't do this. It's not worth it. And then gets the spoonful of cereal to go to their mouth, and it's now just gibberish. And then they look up at the screen again, and it's English, and it's like, yeah, that's basically what it's like trying to eat while watching subtitled.
Well, now, then don't eat. Although I watch Astrid Raphael while eating.
I like that your solution is don't eat. That is...
I think we realise I mean whilst watching something. If it's worth watching, watch it. But like I say, I will read subtitles and eat.
Absolutely. Okay, so here's my take on it, and we divulged from the closing. Sorry,
yes,
William.
It's true.
But here's my take on it, and then I will share where you can find me on the internet to tell me I'm wrong.
Okay.
English dubs are sometimes better, depending on the show, the content, and the actors themselves. Also, of course, there's going to be a nostalgia play. I'm always going to watch Dragon Ball Z in English because I prefer the English voice actors. But even though the same woman has been doing Goku for 100 years, anyway, English is also, like I said, better for eating and casual watching. So it depends on the show. But more recently, I've come into a third reason why I like dubs. Now, I will watch subs. We are watching some very excellent anime right now, subtitled. So point out, I am not against subs. Okay. But I will choose English when I can. So here's my third thing. There has been a change, and I don't know what changed. I think it's a show called that made the change, because I know the show. I'm watching it. My Dress Up Darling. That show, it's the title's silly, but the show
I'm convinced you make this stuff up. But okay, real show.
The show's excellent.
Dress Up Darling.
Yeah, so it's about a guy who is really shy and worried that people are going to judge him for his obsession with Hina dolls, and his grandfather painted Hina dolls, and he wants to paint those Japanese traditional dolls, and he wants to paint them, and he meets a girl in high school who's like this big popular person he would never associate with, but it turns out she likes cosplaying. So he's going to help her make cosplay outfits. It is an adorable, lovely, beautiful, amazing show. Everyone on earth should watch it. It is absolutely stunning and amazing. Well animated, well acted. The reason why I bring it up is I think that might have been the start, and someone might have a better example, of the dub localizing the dialogue in a way that brings in slang and natural communication in a way I have not seen in anime before. Okay. Which is so, and You and I Are Polar Opposites does that too. The voice work in English in that show is amazing. I don't think I would watch the show in Japanese. I would not care about the characters the same way. The voice work sells me the show because their exuberance and their slang really sells it, and would not translate from Japanese. So I don't know what change was made. I don't know who made that decision, but I applaud you because it's making anime better. And so, in sometimes, I will say the dub is a better watch, especially if you speak English natively. So, moving on. If you want to tell me I'm wrong, you can reach me at Blue Sky, hilly.tech. I'm also on Mastodon, hillytech, and easy to find. Wes at AppleInsider.com is my email. Always reach out there. I have a blog. I write there usually about stuff. Yeah, lots of fun. Thanks, guys, for listening. Of course, you can always leave a review on the Apple Podcast app, which no one has done in a while, William. I think we've exhausted.
No, I ran out of money. So, yeah.
If you want your check in the mail from William, at least 2 pence, it will be sent to you once you leave a review on Apple Podcast. We will read it here on the show. 1 star, 5 stars, doesn't matter. We love hearing your critiques, your opinions, whatever. So go ahead and subscribe if you are not a subscriber. And we will be here talking about Apple in 50 years. And I think it's going to be a very interesting conversation. And of course, if you're not a subscriber, you're going to hear about our ads. So I would like to thank once again our sponsor this week, Bartender. And we will be back next week to have more fun talk about Apple, perhaps less anniversary talk anyway. Talk to you then, William.